Now I'd like to turn this over to Doug Chambers, who's going to tell us just a bit about the history of Troop 108. Doug?
The year was 1907 in England. Lord Baden-Powell decided to try out a new program. He invited 21 boys to the Downsea Island, south of England. These boys were between the ages of 11 and 15. They tried out a new program called Scouting for Boys. It became very popular in England quickly across the Atlantic. And in 1910, Boy Scouting began in the U.S., building upon the Tribe of the Woodcraft Indians started by Ernest Thomas Seton and the Boy Pioneers, organized by Daniel Carter Beard. Here in Fort Mill, 1913, our first troop was started. It was also the first charter troop in South Carolina, Troop Number 1. We had 28 scouts who were led by Will Carruthers, and Murray Mack assisted us. Today, scouting in the U.S. has almost 2 million members. 1944, now we're talking about Troop 108. Reverend George Burke saw that Boy Scouting could be part of his church's youth ministry, as does Reverend Don Holloway today. Reverend Burke volunteered his time to be our troop's first assistant scoutmaster, with Mr. Wyatt Gibson as scoutmaster. Mr. Wyatt Gibson was scoutmaster with our troop from 1944 to 1946. He was assisted by a young scout, a young chap who was a scout, Sir Charlie Drone, who in turn became our second scoutmaster from 1947 to 1953. In 1954, Mr. Leroy Phillips came in to help, and he was assisted by Lorraine Helm. And during this time, Leroy was not only handling the scoutmaster of the troop, but he was scoutmaster of our explorer post. Then in 1957 and 1970, 14 years, Mr. Odell Pettis took on leadership of the troop. Incidentally, he was the troop's first Eagle Scout. He came into the troop in 1944 and earned his Eagle with the troop. He was assisted for the longest time by Mr. James Irvin. And in 1971 to 72, Mr. James Carter became scoutmaster. Then in turn, Mr. Hayward Cook. And in 1975 to 1983, 9 years, Mr. Gene Rogers was our scoutmaster. He was assisted for a long time by Mr. Tom Beatty, Dan Jones, Bill Mahaffey, James Merritt, and Bill Walton. And while I'm going through many of these names, looking through our history is like reading our telephone directory for Fort Mill. Following Gene Rogers was Mr. Dan Jones, and in turn, Mr. Rick Dyack. Dan Jones, before he became scoutmaster, he was an assistant for 6 years. And during that time, Mr. Jim Wright was with our troop for 7 years assisting. 1988 through 1992, Mr. Jerry Node was our scoutmaster. Assisted longest time by a coterian, I'll call them that, because this is a group that enjoyed going out with the lads on their camping trips. I think they had as much good time as the boys. Bill Bagwell, Bill Banks, Ben Jackson, Bob Jolly, and Britt Helm. Britt Helm, our current scoutmaster, has been assisting with the troop, unassisted before becoming scoutmaster, for 10 years. Of course, now, Britt Helm is our scoutmaster. He has been assisted for the longest time by Mr. Wayne Bolden, Don John Ward, Mark Washburn, and Mr. Vincent Worth. These were the men that were directly involved with the scouting. Behind them, supporting them, we call the committee. I'm not going to go over the committee. All these are listed somewhere up in the building up the hill. I'm going to mention a few of them. Mr. Lance Pendleton. He's been on the committee for over 9 years. Gene Rogers, 10 years after he quit as scoutmaster. Mr. Chuck Bird for 11 years. Mr. Richard Hammond, who's also the one that helped us out greatly in our barbecues, for 13 years. Mr. J.C. Pierce for another 13 years. Odell Pettis, after being our scoutmaster, came on the committee and worked with the committee for a further 14 years. Dan Jones, another 14 years. Myself, 14 years. As long as our service has been, we are really novices. We have had Mr. Woodrow Joy on the committee 21 years. A.B. Dabney, 22 years. And Mr. Lorraine Helm, 43 years in active service with our troops. Our involvement has not only been local Fort Mill has also provided council presidents to Bill Kimbrough, Sandy Gillum, and Bob Marriott. These men, some 212 of them, have worked with some 797 Fort Mill boys in the last 50 years. 65% of the Troop 108 scouts stayed with the troop for 2 or more years. 5% of the scouts in Troop 108 have earned Eagle Award. And according to Steve Terrell, our Palmetto Council's executive director, this far exceeds the national average of 2%. Why did these men work with these boys? Well, I think Lord Baden-Powell may have an answer. He wrote in his book, Scouting for Boys, I was a boy once, and I hope you will have half as good a time as I have had as a scout.
Thank you, Doug. If I can give you one more quote, Bill Kimball's supposed to be here later on today, and he'll probably make this quote, but he has one that really does tell us about Troop 108 and the Boy Scouts of America. He says it is better to build a boy than to mend a man, so just think about that. Now I'd like to ask Joey Morcock to come forward, please, and you've got some kind of letters that you want to read. Joey, by the way, is a Life Scout, and soon he should be an Eagle Camper.
As many of y'all should know, we sent out a bunch of different letters to many different dignitaries, and some of them replied by phone calls and a few by letters. And this is a letter from Mr. Jerry Ratcliffe, the Chief Scout Executive. Although I am unable to be with you personally this evening, I do wish to extend my very best wishes to all of you as you gather to celebrate another year of successful scouting. 50 years of continual scouting is an accomplishment of which you may all be proud. This speaks to the dedication of many individuals and families through the years who have worked to keep scouting alive in the community. This rich heritage continues to strengthen the scouting program for all who partake of it. In the name of Boy Scouts of America, I say thank you for what you do for scouting. Sincerely, Jerry B. Ratcliffe.